All right, go ahead.
All right. So how long have you lived in Durham?
Gosh, for 20, probably over 20 years.
Okay. What brought you to Durham?
My law school.
How would you say 9/11 affected Durham?
Well, I now is a different perspective because I remember the day. And I was a younger attorney, not so much younger, haha. But I was working, and it was a day like any other day, and it was before they had cable access in downtown Durham, so it's even more funny. So the TV that we had horrible reception, and the primary information, and I'm going back to tell you about the day because there were ramifications on that day, and then later, I don't know that there were massive ones here, but there was a lot of conspiracy theories that stem from that day. And I guess for us in my generation, that was a day that we'll always remember. Where were you when the Challenger exploded? Y'all weren't alive then, I'm assuming. And where were you when 9/11 happened, which is probably a common question. But I was, just to answer, let me go in the past. I was at my office, and I had both of my paralegals with me at the time, and the other attorney that worked there, my brother, who I practiced with, was in Greece. And it made the dynamic and the drama of the moment even more accentuated because no one knew where anybody was and no one knew what was going on. And I remember one paralegal, our bilingual paralegal, screaming, "Oh, you guys, I think it's a joke. Somebody just reported on G105 that a plane flew into the World Trade Center." And we're laughing because we're thinking, oh, it was something not that. It was something flaky, crazy. It was a little biplane. Some guy got lost. How do you do that? I remember us going, "You got to be kidding me!" And there was a short conversation, and then the radio continued, and all programming stopped, and we heard that we were getting more information that made it a little bit more hysterical. So we said, "Turn on the TV." So the TV with horrible reception is, as soon as we got reception, it was live, and the second plane hit the other tower. I will never forget that as long as I live. So I had these two young, I was 30, they were 20, and I had these two 20-year-old girls looking at me, go, "What do we do? What do we do?" So it's a question that in the Triangle in North Carolina, we're not near a country, so to speak, like, I guess, Hawaii, or we're exposed to a Pearl Harbor-ish moment. Mm-hmm. So they asked me, "What do we do?" And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe we need to get under, do we need to put the computers away? Do we need to hide? Do we need to find our families? And there was a moment here thinking, was everybody getting bombed? So you quantified yourself, and you asked yourself, are we really that important? So you ask, what happened since 9/11? I guess you value yourself. We are not as valuable or as important. Was that a question and an answer? As a New York City, immediately you think, would someone bomb us? Would they bomb? Well, then, of course, in the next 12 hours, the conspiracy theories were flying that they had planned to hijack RDU. They were going to bomb or blow up Duke Medical Center because it's a place of medical center. They were going to bomb RTP because it's a center of research in America, et cetera, so forth. And none of that, obviously, for whatever reason, ever happened, and thank God. So I remember we made a decision, the three of us collectively, what do you do? So I guess when you ask what happened since 9/11, the question became a part of a more common conversation. What do you do? What do you do? And we made a decision that day to stay in the office because we had 4 lines I have an aunt that's very close to me that was in, I'm going to cry, that was in Washington, D.C., and I heard that the plane, and she worked off of K Street. Okay, so I was very scared. I had one of my closest friends flying in from New York City that morning, I swear to God, from New York City on American after he had attended the Independent Feature Film Festival in downtown New York City. The Latina paralegal that was in my office at that time, and we see from time to time, she moved on into corporate America, and she's lovely. She lost a cousin with the trade center. And we said, what do you do? Let's call. When my brother was in Europe, and he was literally on the plane flying from mainland Greece, Athens, to the island of Rhodes, which is my family's island. I'm second-generation Greek-American. And I remember calling the hotel, screaming almost, someone's got to let me know. And they said, how are things in America? Because remember, they're 6 hours, well, you wouldn't know, but they're 6 hours ahead. And the news now, the three of us stayed at the office for the whole day. I have never in my life heard phones go dead in my law firm. And at 12 noon, they closed the courthouse because people had family. People were so scared. What do you do? Who knew? What would the courthouse do? This is Durham, North Carolina. What would the courthouse do? People in the morning were in court, and they finally made the decision they have to close down because there were too many ties and too much distraction in the news. This was here. And when they asked me in Greece, how are things in America? I said, we don't know. We're getting bombed. We are getting bombed. And at that one moment, for the next couple of hours, the three of us just stayed there, called people, tried to watch our horrible TV to figure out, was there more coming? And it was only really after. How has Durham changed? We have plans. What do you do? The courthouse closes, the office closes, we go to voicemail. Technology has advanced tenfold, in the last, how many years has it been now, 13 years?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so think about technology now. Everybody can work from home, Everything is cable now in downtown Durham, so it's seconds of info. Now we don't have to scramble and stare at a black and white TV that we only use for VHS videos, okay? So now it's live and it's in your face. So I guess the biggest change is now there's an answer to what do you do.
Okay, that's great. How would you say America was permanently affected, either for better or for worse?
Oh, we are scared, paranoid. Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, I'm sure any of you have traveled in the airlines. That was the other thing. My brother was due to come back from Greece about 7 to 10 days, and I forget now, after the bombings. And this is funny when you say, how have we changed? I have only experienced this at an airport one other time when I first went to Europe and I flew into Germany. And you forget Germany at that time when I went to Europe in 89, 88, I'm forgetting that year, don't age me, I lie about my age, was still occupied. It was still an occupied country. And I flew in and I saw machine guns and military men at the airport and, very World War II-ish. When you see movies, that's how it was at RDU. I will never forget that. A tunnel, you were checked, you were triple checked. Nobody could. I remember going and greeting people right out of the gate. Of course, now you can't do that either. So we are permanently changed to always know that what was once not a possibility is a very distinct and ever-present, probably, possibility. And now we know, I guess, what to do.
How would you say, specifically Durham, how has Durham changed permanently, either for better or for worse?
I don't know in terms of Durham itself, other than what happened recently. If any of you were reading the Herald Sun, There was an incident where a gentleman left his suitcase or his laptop bag after getting off of the bus underneath the stairs at Mechanics and Farmers Bank. Well, the security cameras picked up this suspicious package. The entire part of downtown Durham was cut off. They brought in the bomb squad. You can research this on the net. They had all of the articles up, and actually there was a couple of editorials about that. My husband wrote one of them for the Herald Sun about how Durham has changed. And that was one of the ways we are sensitive to the fact that anyone and anywhere, I guess, is exposed, and if you're talking in terms of 9/11, to a terrorist attack. We lost our naivete, if you know what that means, our naivete, our innocence, and anything is vulnerable.
Okay. After 9/11, how would you describe the feeling of America? Like fear, like fearful, angry, miserable?
I don't know about miserable, but I think the first two were accurate. I have a cousin of mine who's my son's godfather, so we remain close. He's my first cousin, and he lives and has lived for almost as long as I've lived in Durham, in Manhattan, in New York City, and he's a doctor. And he was there that day when he was called into the ER. It was his mother who was in Washington, D.C., so everybody, it's kind of scary. And every doctor in New York City was called in, and he was telling us, a collective group, that he knew that there were no survivors when they changed everything to, they were originally getting blood from all the New Yorkers, and they stopped doing that, and they told all the doctors to go home. So when you say, how has America changed permanently, I have to say, or not changed, I'm sorry, what did we feel immediately thereafter? He, as a New Yorker who was there and had some experience, wanted to move on years later, but it was defiance. What was reported, and I'm saying New York City because the world is told to us through media, through family who lives there, through our own reading, I would assume, and observations, because we live here and not necessarily all over the world. From all of this information, I felt that, it was shock, grief, denial, questions, extreme paranoia, and then plans, resolution, an opportunity to correct what had been ignored, I guess, or to fix the exposure that America had to this kind of an attack. Yeah. And people were good about it. It's like, I have no problem going to the airport. I used to walk right in and get on the plane. Most people that I'm in line with, it's just be prepared. I want you to check me, because I want to be a part of the solution of having this not ever happen again.
How long would you say it took America and Durham to get back to normal, if it ever did?
Whatever normal is, the new normal,
yeah.
I guess is the way that we would say it. The new normal. I would think sooner than I would have expected, probably within the first 2 to 5 years. And I say this again because of that same cousin who, when they shot the lights out as a memoriam, and this was maybe 5 or 10 years, it was a lengthier period of time, and they shot lights out into the sky where the tower was, and the length of time it took to rebuild the tower. I remember him saying, we're all New Yorkers, we just want to move forward. We just want to move forward. So there was a point there of saturation, I guess, with an actual Manhattanite New Yorker, that we want to remember but move forward. So I would have to say, maybe 5 years, 2 to 5, estimated. Everybody had their own process, and everybody grieves differently. In these families, in these firemen, and all of the visuals that we keep with us forever, so we process that differently.
Okay. Take over the interview.
Did you know anyone involved or anyone directly affected?
I think the closest person was my friend and colleague, creative colleague David Iverson, because when I realized that he was on the plane flying in, and that it was an American, I'm pretty sure it was American that I knew he was, because he would just tell me. We had mutual friends in New York City. We weren't romantically involved. We're just college friends to this day. We're college friends. And there was something going on that he needed to report to me and say, hey, this is what happened in the independent feature film market. So I was very aware of his coming and goings. For me, that's probably the closest person, because he left an hour before the next American Airlines, and when I called him and there was no answer on his voicemail, and they're telling me that 2 planes and 3,000 people are dead, and the buildings had collapsed at that point. And David got home, thank God, or he was going to be dead. Got home, and he said there were 2 calls on the voicemail. I left a very calm voicemail. David, this is me, da-da-da-da, call me, whatever. There's been some I don't even remember now what I said. I just remember being calm about it. And David called me, but it was a couple of hours later. And he was completely freaked out. And this is a guy who's a guy. He's not... And he said, okay, there were 2 calls I got, and you could hear his voice was quivering, you and my mom, which is very funny, because I've known the family for 20 years now. And he said, I left, and he was stuttering. I remember that. An hour before I was on American, I need to hang up now. I need to hang up now and watch. I need to hang up now because, and I guess he wondered if there were other friends and colleagues. He's a film editor and a producer in Raleigh to this day. He's the one that would be fascinating to interview. And the others were my cousin Tommy, who was there and called into the ER, and then my Aunt Alex, who was at her desk and felt the explosion at the Pentagon. She was an executive with IBM, or she's an executive assistant with IBM, and she was at that particular office. And I remember it was just strange. I call her because all the lines were busy. She picks up, and I said, get out of the building now. Get out of the building now. And she was like, no, it's fine. And I was like, no. And she said, well, they're telling us to stay. And it's that same kind of echo you would later hear that they told people to stay before the collapse. I said, Alex, I just go outside and walk on the sidewalk. Just get out. And I don't remember if she actually did, but her husband was coming to pick her up. So that was managed as well. And those are my closest people that I knew that had any effect.
Right. Were any Durham-based industries affected, to your knowledge?
I think it would be RDU. RDU is, if it's a Durham-based, it's our airport, although federally owned and operated. The whole management system of the Raleigh-Durham airport completely changed in light of terrorism. But I don't, or the potential for a terrorist act, I don't know if, I would assume, or I've heard that stock collapsed and people who owned things that might have been associated. I know that the airlines and airline pilots and stewardess or the assistant people, there was some trickle-down effect with American Airlines and U.S. Air and the local hubs at RDU. But other than that, I don't have any personal knowledge.
Okay. Would you describe the aftermath of it, with extra airport security and checks like that? Would you describe that as justified or paranoid or somewhere in between?
Probably somewhere in between, but I lean towards the probably justified. I just don't think America was brought into an international arena like other European countries. The Blitzkrieg in London, we were very protected, and it's only now that I think media and war and bombing and terrorism is brought into our living rooms instantaneously because of technology, which is great, because of the instant news. And I guess that would be it. That we are that it's justified because we are a part of the international arena, and the international world is a part of our world now more than ever. And if you look around in Durham, we have more people than ever moving here. We're a bustling building, the hub, everything. So you've got hundreds of different cultures, dialects, languages coming in to Durham every day. And I'm not saying that they're terrorists, no, by no means, but knowing that your community is a part of an international arena where there are people that do not like us, and there are people that hate us, and there are people that think that we are bad people, and everybody has their own agenda. So I guess it's justified. We're in a part of the world that it's justified because of our exposure.